All right, folks, we're back with another episode of the Red and White Podcast. Although I say we, I mean me. I'm here doing this by myself, hoping that one day Dustin changes his mind and comes back to join me. But this week we're going to talk about a bunch of different things. But I want to talk about the theme of the week, and it's perception. The perception of NC State, the perception of football programs, and what it takes to change that perception. I think that's an important thing that we need to overcome, and I'm going to talk about it this week. So let's get started. West Virginia game got canceled, moved. Not sure what's going to happen. Not likely they're going to play it, which is unfortunate because it would have been a good game. I think despite people chalking up for West Virginia as an easy win, I think we would have gave them a good matchup. And I don't know. I was hoping we'd see it. I don't think we're going to see it again. So what do they do from here, right? How do you get that 12th game if you need it? Like Florida State scheduled it during the ACC championship week last year to beat, I don't remember, UAB or something, just to get bowl eligible. So if we need that 12th game, and I think we should play a 12th game, how do you do it? What do you do about it? I think there's two schools of thought with it, and I'd love to get input from y'all to see what you think. But one is to schedule the win, because in the end, wins are all that matters, and nobody's going to look back and say, hey, you won 10 games, but you only played X. I mean, people talk about the year Carolina won the Coastal. I don't remember what year it was, a few years back. And that was the same year that NC State had a bunch of cream puffs on the schedule, but so did the Heels, but nobody was talking about it. I mean, they played Delaware State and Western Carolina and a bunch of teams that they were just overmatched for, along with the weaker Coastal Division. But nobody talks about that. They're not going to go back and talk about it. So do you schedule the easy win? I mean, at times it might not be good. At the time, right? People might say, oh, you're playing Jabroni U, but I don't know how much that really matters long term. So I don't know. I don't know if you go with that train of thought, or the second is what I originally said was schedule up. And it's more of the ECU mentality, right? Schedule a team that is punching above your weight class. And if you beat that team, good. It gives you a little bit more credibility. But is that really just short term? Does everybody look at that and does that help define your program? I don't think so. I started to come around that you want the win number is more important, and you have those chances to beat those teams like we do. Typically Florida State or Clemson. It might be a little different this year with Florida State being god awful, but you beat Clemson, and that's what people are going to remember. And you beat Louisville, right? People are going to remember that, and I think those are the more program-defining moments as opposed to scheduling Nebraska and South Carolina or somebody who may have an open week or may need an extra game too. So I'm not sure. I think to change the perception, you have to win more, and I think that's what people will see, especially from the national writers and folks who don't pay that close attention, right? I think their perception comes from history and seeing a mediocre football program. And I think to change that, you win 9 games last year. I think you win 9 games again this year, and you start to turn that perception around, and I think that's really important. So I don't know. I'd love to get your thoughts. Tweet at me. Would you rather schedule up or would you rather schedule a win? I think that's interesting. I would say no to scheduling. Somebody said something like App State. No thanks. They're too good. And I think that there's just no benefit for that. for State. And we're sure it's fun for the fans, but I don't think there's any real benefit for the program there. If you win that game, cool, you beat App State. You lose that game, like Penn State almost did, and you're on ESPN getting beat by App State. So I don't think that's the route to go. You schedule the win or you schedule a way up and take your shot. What do you think? I had this post here. This is, again, talking about perception. And there's a post here about, this is from IPS. Somebody sent it to me and I thought it was perfect. So I'm just going to read it verbatim. I wish I knew who the author was. But here it is. It says, this isn't just about this season. But if you ask me, teams have left our futures wide open. This is our opportunity to recruit elite talent to come to NC State and flip the script on where blue chip recruits go. Carolina is completely out of the picture right now. FSU is down for 2 years in a row. Louisville looks really bad. If we can get a stranglehold on being a top team in the ACC, that's huge. But the big point to me is we need to be perceived by recruits as a top team. The emphasis was his. This recruiting class is a good start, but we need a team to produce those levels this season and carry us into a new level of expectation in regional and national perception among fans, recruits, and the media. Then we let that ball roll. I think that's perfect. I mean, I really, this guy gets it. It's exactly what I've been thinking. The opportunity is here that we have things going in the right direction, and other teams are down, and you need to change that perception. I think you get those wins, and you start to change that perception. You start to change what people think about when they think about NC State football. So I think that's important to think about when you're talking about scheduling, or you're talking about the overall view of the program. And you start hearing things, and it frustrates me. It frustrates everybody when I hear somebody like Bruce Feldman automatically chalk up Florida State to beat us. And we've been saying it all year that they aren't good. And if you take a closer look at some of these teams that are getting ranked higher than us in the preseason just because of the perception that their program is better, they're in a better place. People see NC State losing entire defensive line to the NFL draft, and they think, all right, this program's going to struggle. They're going to rebuild. But they don't see the talent in the other positions. Nobody looks that close. It's NC State after all. I mean, why would you look that close? So I get it. I understand why that is, but you have to change the perception. And how do you change that perception? I think you have to get the wins. I think in the end, people are going to look at it and say, did you win? What did this team do? They're not going to look at the schedule. And speaking of the schedule, I think NC State is one of 7 teams that hasn't played a Power 5 team. So, that's no fault of our own. We had West Virginia on the schedule, but still, there's still some unknowns here. And we have to win these games that you're supposed to win. And you have to change the perception. You got to start, making the kicks against Clemson. You got to start making the plays and getting away from, that perceived middle tier status. And I think we can do it. At some point, people are going to recognize where the program is and how it's being developed. You can look back and nobody talks about it. Everybody talks about, because Cuse actually finished it. They beat Clemson, but State's played Clemson really close for like the last 4 or 5 years, except for one, I believe. And there's a reason for that. I mean, the program is doing better than we get credit for. But we have to win those games to start changing that perception. And I think that's important. So this week, going to Marshall, I think it's very important. We don't know much about Marshall. Their game against South Carolina got postponed as well. But it's a game we should win. I mean, to be a better team, you have to go up there for a night game, and you have to impart your will on them and win that game. And it's not going to get people talking about NC State, but it's going to, they're going to be 3-0, and people are going to start to look at the program a little closer. And it's going to be a big opportunity with some of the games coming up. They're going to love, we could be 4-0 going to Boston College, or, Boston College coming to Carter Finley. And Boston College, everybody loves them right now, even though they haven't really played anybody. So change that perception. Go to Marshall and win. And I think we should. They gave us a little problem last year, and they're a well-coached team, and everybody's going to give you all those lines about it. But the fact of the matter is we have better talent than them, and we should go up there and win. I think it's a 6.5-point line. Is that what it opened as? State favored. So you give a touchdown for home field or whatever, and it's a double-digit margin there in Vegas' eyes if it's a neutral field. So Pack needs to go up there, get things done, and start to change the perception of the program. And I'm going to get some questions here from the questions and statements I asked for from Twitter people. So I'm going to read those and kind of comment on them. John Carter: there's a real chance we only lose two games this year, Clemson and Syracuse. And I think that's true. And we've been saying it all along. I've been saying all along that this team, there's no game on this schedule this team can't win. And that sounds crazy. And if you're an outsider listening to this, sounds like a complete homer. But they have enough talent in the right positions to compete. And I agree. I think you can win any game on your schedule this year. I said it this summer on the ACC Sports podcast with Hokie Smash that I was being a bit facetious, but the Pack can go 12-0, and I don't think that's crazy to think about it. I think that's I think it's a possibility. I think they're going to be in every game. Now, we don't know that much. I still think we have some things to work out, but I think overall it's where we want to be. I think it's going in the right direction. And I think it's very real for us to start thinking about those sorts of things. And we start thinking about it, and then everybody else starts to see it. Right? We start to change the perception. David Stanford says, how important is this Marshall game in your opinion, and what was the acceptable score? Considering we got abbreviated out-of-conference schedule without our marquee game. So I think it's an important game just because you have to win. Again, it's one of those games, if you lose, you lost to Marshall. I think that never looks good. There have been worse losses this year from teams. I mean, you look around the league, and the Big Ten last week just got demolished. So it's important to win, right? It's one of those games that you should win, so it's important to win that. An acceptable score, I don't know. You win by 10 points. I think anything more than 10, and I'm fine with. But I'm just happy with a win, to be honest. Ben Lale, do you think Brady Bodine should get more playing time? This is a tough one. I mean, I understand what people are saying, and he had a nice run at the end of the Georgia State game. But I don't think that's the answer to the running game woes. I think we're gonna see more Gillespie and more Trent Penix, which is probably what we want. If I had to take a guess, with Person not being on this week's depth chart and Dorn saying he has a muscle injury, he's headed for a red shirt this year, which is fine. I think that's you build some depth at the running back position. You got some guys coming in, if they all sign, there's some real talent coming in the running back position. So. But back to Brady Bodine, I don't think that's the guy's worked hard. He had a good run at the Georgia State game, but I think you give Penix and Gillespie more reps. Gillespie needs holes, and Penix needs more experience. I think you're going to see that those guys learning to read their blocks a little bit better and make more plays. And I think they're going to start running out different formations, which will impact it too. And then, a lot of people have mentioned getting Dylan Autenreith back and Kerry Angeline. I think that's going to change the way the running game is handled. I mean, you look at the blocking tight end, Cole Cook last year. I think he was undervalued in the run game. He was an excellent blocker, and I think that's the kind of the component that's missing. But hopefully with those two guys coming back, that changes a little bit this week. So, I mean, you just got to stick with Gillespie and Penix for now. I think the Bowdine's a nice story, but I think that's a bit of a pipe dream, to be honest. Biscuit, one of my favorite Twitter handles, Dr. Biscuit fan, after Clemson, who was the number 2 team in the Atlantic. And I think conventional wisdom is Boston College, but there's no reason it can't be us. It could be it could be Syracuse, but there's no reason it's not Boston College, Syracuse, or NC State. I think that's real. I think that's a real possibility. Boston College, I guess, would have the best win of those 3, beating Wake Forest on the road. But none of them have impressive wins. So I'm going to say it's a 3-way tie there. But that, again, you're opening the door for us to be that second team. And I think that's what we're trying to achieve. I think that's what we want to do. John Carter, is this our down year? Quotes, down year. Future years look promising with these recent recruiting classes. And I hope so. I get what you're saying. You use down year loosely. But, if we have these years where a bad year is winning 8 games, good years, winning 10 games, I mean, that's, again, puts you right in the second spot in the Atlantic and competing for that first spot. You're in that conversation. You're changing that perception. And I think that's very important. So if it is our down year, our down years have to elevate those down years. It's hard to say a down year when you have, future NFL talent on the team. So I don't know. I think it could be a very good year. But if our ups and downs, that margin becomes a lot tighter, I think that's how you change the perception of a program. We've talked about it before with Clemson. Historically, if you followed State and the ACC for the last 20 years, Clemson wasn't that good. Clemson wasn't that much better than State. It was the Textile Bowl was legit. It was 2 8-win teams playing every year. I mean, it was, they were right there with us, and they changed their perception. They won some games. Dabo got a bunch of recruits, and they made things happen. They did it. They changed their perception, but they had been a dominant program for a long time. I look at a school like Oklahoma State, too. I think it's another one where, Mike Gundy has changed that perception of that program. And they don't play anybody for the most part. They beat I forgot who they beat this week. They had a good game. Oh, Boise State. All right, everybody thought the Boise bus was going to run through Stillwater, but Oklahoma State changed that perception. Now, they don't play anybody for the rest of the year. I mean, they play in the Big 12, so they get down to, I think, TCU and Oklahoma. The last 3 games of the year for them are the ones that are going to be important. But for the most part, everybody's going to talk about Oklahoma State. And if you hear Oklahoma State, most people think, top 25 team, no matter how good or bad they are. And I think that's where we're just on the outside of that. I think that's where we want to be. I think that's the next step. But you look at these programs and you can change it. You just gotta win the games. You gotta get those numbers. Tucker Blankenship. This is another one. What do we have to do to get a non-noon start at home? I don't know, man. You have to take somebody's kneecaps out, I think. I don't get it. I think Wake Forest Rice got the 3:30 slot for next week when we play Virginia. That's ridiculous. And I know the TVs and the conferences control that, but come on now. There's no reason for that. Not in August, September, man. It's hot as balls out. Nobody wants to deal with that. So, I don't know. But I think, again, it comes out to you change your perception. You change the perception of your program. People want to watch it. And they'll start talking about you. They'll start talking about your NFL talent quarterback. They'll start talking about your NFL talent at wide receiver. And that's when you get the premier times, you get the better ratings, you get better times. So I think that's more of an outcome of our current perception. Mr. Rictus, how is it even really possible to justify 3 straight noon games for a 9-win team? One of the best QBs in the country. I need my tailgate time. I agree with you, man. I think that's exactly it, right? It's the perception that NC State should play at noon, and I know most of us believe that we're better than that, and I think we're pretty confident in that, but we have to change the perception of everybody, the ones that make those decisions. I think that's just something that it takes time. But last year, this recruiting class, this year, these are the things you have to do. Now you have to win some big games. And you have to win your games to get those numbers up. But you're changing the perception. And I think that's just such a challenge from a program standpoint. But I think you can do it. It's not... the signs are pointing in the right direction. I think that's important to notice. This one's kind of a different topic. Thoughts on the Hockman commit. So Bailey Hockman, 4-star out of high school, committed to Florida State. Didn't work there, went to junior college, and committed to NC State last week or this week, whatever it was. Now, I've seen a lot of schools have thought on this one as well. My initial thought was you couldn't beat out DeAndre Francois or Blackman. Like, how good could he be? What kind of impact could he have? And after doing some research and listening to what other people had to say about him, it's not as much that he didn't beat out those guys. By all accounts, he did, and he started with the ones for the Florida State spring game. But I think it put Taggart in a position that if you name him your starter, Francois is a grad transfer, he'll be gone, and it'd be likely that Blackman would leave too, because you'd be playing behind a 3-year guy or 4-year guy there, and that would have left them with one quarterback on the roster. And so I think there's probably a bit of that that comes into play because Hockman can play. I think everybody says, by all accounts, he's a good player, and he won that competition this spring, but didn't get the job for other reasons. And I can kind of understand that's a tough spot to be in. None of the 3 quarterbacks are what Taggart wants, but I think he wanted 2 quarterbacks versus 1. I don't know. When you add that depth, though, I think that's what you need. You need that depth and competition. So you have 2 4-star quarterbacks and a local kid who's a 3-star that can play. I mean, everybody thinks he can play. Everybody says he can play. That's going to be a hell of a competition this spring when Finley's gone. I don't know what's going to happen. I would say McKay's a leader in the clubhouse just from getting experience, but you hear a lot of high praise for Leary, and Hockman can play, so there's no telling. And I think that's a good thing for the program. And a lot of people are concerned, like, what does this mean? Is Leary going to leave? I don't think that's it, man. I think these guys know when you start to build a program that there are competition at different positions. And I think these kids all get that. I think it's harder for us to understand that when there's just, the transfer market is so hot these days that people are just quick to leave, and they think that everybody's going to do that. But you look at the program, people building programs, and they have depth. They have depth at all the key positions. And you kind of see how that's impacted us this year. We don't have the depth at the running back position. We have a lot of young guys, and you lose Aaron Collins and Nyheim Hines for different reasons, but you lose those guys, and you have a struggling running game. So I think that's something, there's a positive there. I think getting that depth at quarterback is what we're looking for. Going back to the perception thing, and I've had this idea. If any of you guys are a web developer out there and want a fun side project, I have something interesting I think that would be fun to chart out the total wins for programs and watch and see if you can we can graph out their ups and downs. And I'd like to flesh it out a little bit more, but if anybody out there is looking for a little side project, I think it'd be fun to work with. Hit me up. Let's talk. I think it's a good idea. At least be interesting to see, if you can look at win total trends for different schools and how, if somebody's going up, somebody's got to go down, right? There's always that balance, and like to see who that is and where, if that'll provide a different perspective for us to look at. But I have some notes written down about it, but just somebody wants to spin up a web app, let's talk about it. It'd be interesting. Couple other things. FSU being awful is pretty fun. I like watching the infighting going on there. People talking about firing Daggett 3 games in. He might be a bad coach, but that's still a bit ridiculous. All the GoFundMe's trying to get his $21 million buyout, makes us look sane, which is great. But all fans are the same. They're all crazy. Everybody's got a crazy fan base. I wish we got them now before they got a chance to right the ship. I think that's interesting. But, it's kind of one of those things that luck of the draw, I guess. Lock of the week. I think this is. I'm having an awful year in my picks. College, NFL, it's just been bad. I don't know what it is. I'm watching plenty of football. So, since I'm having a bad year, I phoned it in. Dustin gave me his lock of the week. South Carolina -2.5 at Vanderbilt. So go with that one. Make your money on that one. Go with South Carolina. A couple other people said USF -22.5 versus ECU. It was Joe Wagstaff. Dave from Carter Finley said Pitt -4. I think they come to Chapel Hill. That'll be interesting. I think they're probably in better shape than Carolina, but I don't trust Carolina. That'll be one of those games where they throw 10 bombs and hit them. But I don't know. I think that's about it for this week. Ramble a little bit. I'd like to change the perception of the program. I think that's just back to I think that helps everybody understand where we are. And I think that things are going in the right direction. I think everybody kind of feels that. Everybody kind of sees that. But now you got to do it on the field. So they got to win. So change the perception. I was thinking about doing a video, like a weekly video. But that would mean I probably have to put pants on. I don't know if there's anybody who wants to deal with all that. But let me know if video is a good idea. I think it'd be something interesting to experiment with. I don't know, podcasting is a little bit easier, but I think video might be a little bit might be fun. I'm not sure. Be something to explore. Let me know what your thoughts about that are. So far, I'm sticking solo. Hoping Dustin changes his mind at some point, comes back, but I have commitment issues, so I'm not bringing in as co-host yet, though, but I appreciate everybody offering. And I think that's about it. So hit me up. Let me know. I'd love to have the conversation. What do you think the perception is? What are your thoughts on that? And as always, thanks for listening. Go Pack.